Hey guys, I'm Erica. Welcome to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be talking about questions I had and things I wish I knew before I bought my first house at 25. If you guys are new to my channel, my sister and I bought a house together almost a year ago now, and we were 25 and 23. It was our first house, so we definitely learned a lot through the process. We looked with a realtor for a while. We actually ended up in a place and in a city that we were not looking for the majority of the time, and it just kind of like fell into place. But we learned a lot throughout our process. If you are looking for a house right now, you probably know how crazy the market is, especially right after COVID. Houses were just flying off the market and things were going for way over asking. It was super daunting. Almost every single house was getting outbid, and like it felt like you had to move so fast. But then also some advice from older people and people who have more experience in the market were kind of like, you shouldn't jump on buying a house right now. Interest rates are rising. Houses are going for way more than like they're really worth. But then you have realtors saying, no, houses are only going to keep going up. And obviously within the last year, housing prices are starting to stabilize. Interest rates are still high, but seems like they're not going to go up anymore, and hopefully will start going down. But it is just a really confusing, scary time to invest in real estate and to buy a house, especially if it's your first house. So here's just some advice and some things that I think will be helpful to know along your journey. So the first thing is as a first-time homebuyer, you are eligible to only put 3% down on a house. The drawback to this is that you have to pay mortgage insurance. So typically you need to put 20% down on a house in cash. So for easy numbers, let's say you were going to buy a house that's $100,000. You need to put down $20,000 in cash, but you could be eligible if you are a first-time homebuyer to put just 3% down, so only $3,000. Your monthly mortgage would be a lot higher, and then on top of that, you have to pay mortgage insurance until you reach that 20% number. Probably for a long time, it will be extra money and might not be worth it. It increases your monthly payment depending on maybe if you want to start at like 10 or 15%. That would probably be a better number to start at. I don't have too much experience with that. It is an option if you don't have a ton of capital to put down on a house. A question that I had about loans and a mortgage was a lot of the houses that we were looking at, pretty much every house we looked at was a fixer-upper. I wasn't really sure if we could borrow more money from the bank with our mortgage so we could have more cash to spend on construction and repairs. You cannot do that. If you need to borrow money, you could get a construction loan, but the interest rates are a lot higher than a mortgage, so you would definitely be paying a lot more money. Most of the time it's probably worth just waiting until you have the capital to pay for the construction yourself and not having to borrow money to do those repairs and all of that. Kind of leads me into my next point about wanting to have at least 6 months in reserves. You want to still have about 6 months of your mortgage payment saved after you've put money down, which is definitely hard. It can be very easy when you are looking for a house for your budget to start creeping up and just being like, well, I just want to spend a little bit more so I can get a better house. Ultimately, I do think that the smartest idea is make sure you have money saved after putting your down payment down, because we have spent so much money in repairs and you would not necessarily be able to tell. For example, the foundation needed to be fixed, and that was about a $20,000 expense. We did know that, but you definitely need to think about, if you're looking at fixer-uppers or older homes, that you want to make sure you have some money so you can fix things and repair things. Not only do you want that money for repairs, but if you get laid off or get fired or whatever, being able to stay in your house for 6 months until you're able to get back on your feet again would definitely be ideal. It is super hard though when it feels like there is so much money that you have to put to saving to buying a house. On top of that money that you need for your down payment, you also need to save for the disaster fund. It's definitely worth having that money saved and not stretching yourself so thin that you end up in a bad position. When you are doing your inspections and people are going through the house, you want to research how much the repairs really are. A lot of times the report that you'll get from the house, they will put like a monetary value on, let's say like it needs a new water heater or the foundation or the house might need to be tented. They might put like a value there, but it could be worth doing your own research so you know really how much it's going to be and you don't get yourself into something that you actually can't take on and handle. With the house that we bought, we were able to negotiate money off of the house because of some of the repairs that had to happen instantly. So these aren't like cosmetic things. They were things like the fence was completely falling over, the foundation work, and this isn't obviously every house, and the situation with the seller is different, but for our house specifically, it was a major fixer-upper, and most people were looking at coming in and tearing down this house, and the seller had a lot of sentimental value with this home, and we basically said we are not going to tear it down. So they were more willing to work with us, and so they were able to negotiate and give us some money off. So again, let's say that the house is $100,000 and you somehow negotiate the seller to come down $20,000. Even though it feels like, oh, I'm getting this $20,000 savings, you're really only seeing like $4,000 extra dollars that don't have to come out of your bank account for your down payment. So even though it's great to negotiate down and everything, and overall it works out in your benefit, it could seem like you're taking a bunch of money off the total price, but the actual amount that it lowers your down payment isn't a whole ton. Keep that in mind. It might be worth asking for the seller to repair it themselves and pay for it out of pocket versus you getting money off of the total price and having to pay for it yourself. I'm not a realtor. That's something that your realtor would probably have a lot more insight and knowledge depending on the repairs and if you want it done a specific way or if it just is a generic fix or what have you. That might be worth negotiating seller versus buyer to do. As you start getting serious in the home buying process, it is smart to get pre-approved, just because if you do find the house that you want, you can move quickly. When we were looking in San Francisco, it was a requirement for us to do any private showings with our realtor to be pre-approved, probably to keep people who are just looking for fun out of houses that they can't afford. But again, if you are pre-approved, you can move quickly. Throughout our home buying process, obviously as we were looking, we were still able to save money. So the amount we were pre-approved for would, in a small amount, but it would go up as we were able to save more. And then also because of the interest rates and everything changing throughout that period, the interest rates change, and so like your monthly payment and what you qualify for changes because of that as well. I do have a friend who, even though once she was pre-approved and found a place that she wanted, she actually shopped around for mortgage rates before picking the loan that she wanted to go with. It's not something that my sister and I did, but I do think it could be smart, especially with interest rates so high. Mortgage companies are a business too, and I didn't really think of it like this, but they want to lend you money, and especially right now when not a lot of people are buying homes, you might have more success in negotiating a lower interest rate with a bank so they can have your business, and you don't have to go with the lender who gave your initial pre-approval, which I feel like I wouldn't have known that. Something that was really hard for my sister and I throughout this process was to not feel the pressure. San Francisco specifically is a crazy market, and we were looking there for almost a year. My sister especially started feeling a lot of pressure just about that we needed to move on a house, and you kind of just start feeling like, I guess I need to start settling a bit because we've been looking for so long. We haven't found exactly what we want. Prices just kept increasing and we could not save money at the rate that houses were increasing. So it almost felt like we were getting less and less for our money as time went on. And of course, realtors, no matter how great of a realtor you have, realtors are business people, and they are always going to tell you right now is the time to buy and prices are only going to keep going up. You need to do it now. And so there is a lot of external pressure with that, but we also had a lot of advice from other people, some of our family and people at work that were older that had like bought a house, years ago, saying like, you shouldn't buy a house right now, the market's way too crazy. And so there was that pressure from both sides of people being like, don't do it, and then you need to do it right now or you'll never be able to do it. And luckily we got a house that I feel like we got a really good deal on in a time when like not many houses were able to negotiate and come down in price. And that was for a few reasons, which I'll get more into later. If you are in the process of buying a house or you're thinking about it, I think pressure and opinions from other people, as much as you can learn from other people and everything, you have to do what like feels right to you. And only you really know how much you're willing to spend and how much you're willing to pay every month. It is really true, when you do find the right house, you will know that that's the one that you are like willing to spend all this money for and what really feels like a good idea in your head. So don't be rushed into buying a house. This is literally the biggest purchase of your life. Don't be rushed in, but don't also be like too scared off that you're in analysis paralysis, which I suffered with a lot more than my sister. She wanted to move very fast and I was like cold feet. I would like something and then be like, oh my gosh, I don't know. There's a good balance. Another good thing to do, which is, it seems super obvious, but you really want to establish how much you want to spend every single month on your mortgage, utilities, all of that. A lot of times you can qualify for a lot more money than you're probably willing to spend. Again, like I was talking about in the beginning of this video, it can be really tempting to just be like, wait, let's just go up another $100,000 or $50,000 in our budget so we can get like this house, and it is so easy to keep raising your budget. I think everybody does it. We actually ended up finding a house that was like pretty well below our initial highest budget, which I was not expecting. In San Francisco, I felt like we were gonna max out our budget. Thankfully, I'm really glad that we did not buy something at the top of our budget because one, we are doing a lot of repairs in this home, maybe more than we would have done in a house that we bought for the top of our budget, but also you never know. There are things that happen that you can't foresee, and then still being able to have money to go out to dinner or buy a flight has been really nice. A really helpful thing to be able to afford your monthly payment is renting out a room. My sister and I bought the house together, and my boyfriend also lives with us, so he rents from us, which makes our mortgage a lot more affordable to both of us. Obviously, because we qualified for the house, we could have paid for it without him, but we would have been spending a lot more of our money, and it's made it just more comfortable. Our situation in a fixer-upper would definitely not be ideal to have a renter who you don't know, because definitely things have been rough at times in this house, but having somebody that like you know, and obviously being my boyfriend, he kind of knew what he was getting into, that the house was going to be in some rough stages. And I would definitely recommend, especially if you're single and you have an extra room, definitely rent a room out, because it is really going to help you on your mortgage. And in the long term then, if you are willing to spend the money that you would have spent on your mortgage without having a rental, you can put that money towards principal and start paying off your mortgage much sooner than the 30 years. When you do start paying your mortgage, the majority of your money goes to the interest and your principal will go down such a small amount. It is very defeating, but you can put extra money towards just principal every month. And so you want to make sure to click on your mortgage that you're paying it just for the principal. I don't fully understand it, but you just don't want to pay that it's like paying towards the interest. You just want to take it off the principal if you're adding in extra money. So I wouldn't have known that unless my coworker was sitting right next to me as I was paying my mortgage, and he was like, you need to click on that you only want to pay extra to your principal. So like I said, my sister and I were able to get this house for under asking, and they did know that we were planning on not tearing it down, which you need to ask your realtor if you can do this. I think in different states there can be different laws, even in different cities, about this, but we technically wrote the buyer a love letter, which basically you're just writing them that you love their house. I think could work really well if you're like a young family and buying from like maybe empty nesters, and I'm sure there's so much sentimental value in the house. I'm sure most of those types of people want to sell to a young family who's gonna have new memories in their house. The love letter can really help, and like I said, the buyer was willing to work with us because we said, oh, we love your house, we're not gonna tear it down. We're two young sisters who have dreamt of buying a house together, blah, 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 and it might benefit you. So if your realtor says it's okay, the other realtor is willing to present it to the seller, then it's definitely something worth doing. Let me know if you guys have any more questions or comments on the house buying process. Obviously, I am not an expert. This is only my experience of buying a house, but I definitely learned a lot throughout this process. I would definitely recommend talking to people who have gone through the experience, because it is such a serious investment that you want to know as much as you can going into it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video.